From The Australian, here's what's on the front. I'm Kristen Amiot. It's Friday, July 18, 2025. The locations of two possible future AUKUS submarine bases have been snapped up by the son of a prominent Shanghai businessman. It comes after Beijing warned the Albanese government not to rescind Chinese ownership of the port of Darwin. That exclusive story is live right now at theaustralian.com.au. The family of missing Lennox Head woman Bronwyn Winfield are optimistic the police investigation into her disappearance and presumed murder is making progress. New episodes of The Australian's investigative podcast Bronwyn are out now. Today, National Chief Correspondent Hedley Thomas joins us. The Australian's investigative podcast series Bronwyn, about the unsolved disappearance and alleged murder of Lennox Head mother Bronwyn Winfield, was only ever intended to be one season of about 10 episodes. Bronwyn vanished from her home on Sandstone Crescent in Lennox Head, on the New South Wales far north coast, on May 16 in 1993. That night, the young mum tucked her two little girls into bed and vanished. Police investigations conducted over the last 3 decades have largely failed to shed any light on Bronwyn's fate, and the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions has declined to prosecute her husband, John Winfield, for her murder. He's always maintained Bronwyn left the family home in Lennox Head voluntarily and vehemently denies he played any role in her disappearance. Launched in May of 2024, the series, investigated by The Australian's National Chief Correspondent Hedley Thomas, now spans 33 episodes and 3 seasons. It's a far cry from what Hedley told Bronwyn's brother Andy Reid and his wife Michelle in the days before the series launched.
You know, we're talking about a series of maybe 8, 9 or 10 episodes. So it's not going to be over quickly.
We are definitely bringing the series to a conclusion now, Kristen, because having covered so much ground and spent maybe 9, 10 episodes reconstructing really important parts of the evidence, and we've interviewed so many dozens of witnesses from back in the day, but also new people who have come forward, there isn't much more that we can do. Podcast listeners might recall that back in December of last year, Andy Reid, who is Bronwyn's brother, wrote to the state coroner, Theresa O'Sullivan, and in his letter he set out all of the very compelling reasons why, in Andy's view and in the view of police who have been talking to us and quite senior lawyers who have been giving us advice, a search beneath an existing property in Illawong in the Shire south of Sydney is now something that really should be seriously considered. That's one of the very significant new pieces of circumstantial evidence pointing to something that could possibly resolve this long, cold case.
Several bombshell revelations have been made over the course of Hedley's investigation into Bronwyn Winfield's disappearance. There was the emergence of a secret daughter fathered and then abandoned by John Winfield as a teenager. Sharing her story for the first time, Sonia Lee said she hoped to assist the investigation and show John Winfield's other children who he really is.
What do you believe is a good outcome?
For the girls, them knowing what happened to Bronwyn. The good, the bad, the ugly, whatever it may be, they deserve to know. It's got to be the heaviest load for them to carry.
There was also the revelation John Winfield was the sole beneficiary of the estate of a reclusive woman living in Lennox Head after his wife vanished.
The solicitor brought up his name and said to me, "This is John and he is Bev's partner," which was a shock, total shock, because they've never mentioned anything about anybody in her life.
And in recent episodes, the Australian's production team recreated 5 days of inquest proceedings featuring a host of voice actors, many of whom came from the paper's newsrooms around Australia.
Bronwyn's brother Andy and his wife Michelle and other loved ones of Bronwyn, they wanted to ensure that a podcast would, where possible, leave no stone unturned. There is an enormous amount of material that you can cover, and that does demand a huge amount of work. I was talking to Michael Drury, and he was a former top detective in New South Wales until his retirement to northern New South Wales. But more infamously, Michael Drury was targeted in a shooting that was ordered by Roger Rogerson, the corrupt cop, and he wanted Michael Drury out of the way. Michael Drury was doing such an amazing job fighting organised crime, and he contacted me because he had been following very closely this podcast series. And when we met for a cup of tea recently, he told me that with a podcast, you have tens of thousands of potential sources and armchair detectives who can make their own inquiries and possibly make a difference, as well as the people you reach who know something but have not been prepared to come forward before. And as Mick Drury said, that is one hell of a team that you can draw on. And that's what I find with these podcast investigations when they go deep and broad and wide. They are amazingly effective, more effective than any other journalism I've been involved in before. And that's why people talk about the power of these productions.
And what should listeners expect from these final episodes of the Bronwyn podcast series?
No spoilers, Kristen. I won't go too deeply into the detail, but we are going to look at the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions and its consideration of this case and of cases generally, and what oversight, if any, there is in situations where there may have been a misunderstanding in that office of the evidence. We're going to look at one of the cold case reviews that police did in Bronwyn's case, and listeners will hear from some other witnesses who we believe are important in understanding this case and contextualising it. And I'm hoping to sit down with the people who have been most important throughout the investigation, because I first started talking to Andy Reid, Bronwyn's brother, in 2018, and to his sister Kim Marshall a little bit earlier than that. It was during the Teacher's Pet. It's taken this long to get to this stage, but we're hopeful that something could happen at the end of the series. We'll end up with more than 40 hours, perhaps 45 hours of audio. We're talking there about 450,000 words. That is about 5 largish books on one case. So throughout the time that we've been working together, there have been highs and lows and a lot of hard work. And it's important, I think, that we just get together and reflect on those things and have a good talk about it. Hopefully we can regroup at some stage if some announcements made, some actions taken, but that's not a matter for us. It's really a matter for police.
Coming up, why Bronwyn Winfield's loved ones are feeling optimistic after more than 3 decades. More than 30 years after Bronwyn Winfield vanished, her brother, Andy Reid, told Hedley Thomas he's feeling quietly optimistic about the progress of the investigation underway at the New South Wales Police Unsolved Homicide Unit.
You got back to some news from Nigel Warren.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed that they didn't want to have a face-to-face.
Because they were at what seemed to be a sort of a delicate stage of their investigation. I don't want to read too much into it. What did you take from it?
I suppose we've just got to hope that the due diligence has been followed and the right things have been followed up.
Detectives have previously acted on new evidence surfaced in the podcast, Like Judy Singh's claim, she saw John Winfield driving with a mummy-like figure in the back seat of the family's Ford Falcon.
And this night I was sitting up and I could see directly into the car, and he kind of looked up this night, and I saw this, what looked to be like a mummy in the back of the car. And I thought, well, even if he was taking out belongings, you wouldn't make it look like a body.
Hedley, Andy has previously expressed his frustration at the slowness of the police investigation into Bronwyn's disappearance over the years, but he's told you in this latest episode of the podcast that he's feeling quietly optimistic about the direction of the investigation that's underway now. What's changed?
I asked Andy and his wife Michelle about that because I got a sense that they were just less frustrated and a bit more philosophical about how things were unfolding, even though it has been 32 years since Andy's sister disappeared. And what they indicated to me was that they had become more aware of the need for police to go through a certain very deliberate process. And that process is designed to make sure that everything is airtight. Andy feels like he has been let down at different stages by police and others in the criminal justice system. In fact, shortly before the Bronwyn series launched in May last year, Andy was told by the head of the Unsolved Homicide Unit that they didn't believe they could take things any further in the absence of new evidence. Now there has been new evidence that's come out as a result of people coming forward in the podcast, and police have gathered that new evidence. We don't know what use they'll make of it, but Andy and Michelle now accept that something might happen, that these things are being taken seriously, and I think they're just a bit more patient.
Hedley Thomas is The Australian's national chief correspondent and the creator of the Bronwyn podcast. Subscribers can hear new episodes of the series now at bronwynpodcast.com. And for all the nation's best news, sport and politics, visit theaustralian.com.au.